deflation is good. And we need to, there's a chapter in the book called Embrace Deflation, which we really need to do. And that's Jeff's whole thesis is that, technology is relentlessly deflationary, and we're running a monetary system that requires inflation. And so the two of those just aren't compatible, and it's a problem. And he's right. So, Bitcoin fixes this because it is a deflationary currency. And over time, everything gets cheaper in Bitcoin terms because there's a fixed amount of Bitcoin. And that's a good thing. So, I spent a lot of time in the book talking about how part of how we got into this big mess that we're in right now is that the Keynesian model was always fundamentally wrong. But they managed to just keep papering it over and kicking the can down the road. The problem is we're now so far down the road, and the can's gotten so big that you can't kick it anymore, or it's close to being unkickable. And so something's got to give, and they're either going to, and that's actually how I got the name of the book, because what I think is coming is, they're going to have to do another big print. They've already done a couple. 2008 was a big print. 2020 was a bigger print. And now they're going to have to do a very big print because of the way the system is structured, where they can't service the existing debt unless we print. So that's kind of the bottom line.
Where do you see that going, Larry? Because you talked about the power law, say 200,000 is kind of like your low end of the low rung on the ladder this cycle. We talked about Dr. Jeff, so 475, Samson's at $1 million, Jack Mahler's is 250 to $1 million. How do you kind of like what model do you kind of what's the Larry model? Like, how do you kind of see that? Because it's like you said, the big print, we had 5-10 trillion, just printed in the last 5-6 years. Is it 10, 20, 50 trillion this next time? Like where are we at?
Yeah, I think it is. Bernanke printed, 3 or 4, and then that became, 5 to 7. And now, I think the next one is 10 to 15 or maybe more. A lot of it has to do, there are a lot of policy choices that get made, but a lot of it has to do with quote unquote something breaking. COVID was something breaking. The 2008 crisis was something breaking. Right now, there doesn't appear to be anything breaking. The bond market, the 10-year bond yield has been going up, and if it takes out 5, that'll be a sign that things are breaking. But, it kind of depends on, a crisis. Like if, for example, the stock market were to fall, or unemployment, or unemployment were to squirt up, and people were to start to get cautious, that would be something breaking. And, what's amazing to me is that we've got these enormous government deficits, 1.8 trillion last year, running at a higher rate than that now. And, ostensibly the market, things are healthy. We've got a record stock market, we got pretty low unemployment, and we got, high but reasonable inflation. So with all of those things, we're still running this huge deficit. It's like, what? How is that? So imagine the stock market breaks, imagine unemployment goes up, tax receipts go down. The deficit's going to only get worse. And kind of the way I look at it, Brandon, is, the U.S. government's kind of like that family that takes out new credit cards and gets more credit to pay the minimums on the prior credit cards. And because that's what they do, right? They issue more debt, and, they spend more than they bring in. And that means they have to issue debt. They issue the debt, and that goes into a fixed size bond market. That causes interest rates to go up. And, then they do it again. And interest rates going up, makes their deficit bigger. So they got to issue even more debt. And this is a debt doom loop. And so, it's a cycle. It's a very negative feedback loop cycle that, either ends with everything kind of blowing up, or, everything kind of crashing. It's either massive inflation or massive deflation, or maybe even some combination of the two. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's pretty obvious to me that it can't continue in the current system, and they can't hold it together, I don't think, for more than another year or two. I really don't. They used a lot of tricks last year. They ran down the reverse repo, account. Yellen termed out, she did not term out the debt. She went to very short-term notes. Here's the thing. They really, really need to get interest rates down. They really, Powell says he don't want to do it because he's trying to be Volcker, but my gut is he's going to have to do it, or he's going to be forced to do it. They've got to take interest rates down because everyone's buying, our government debt's buying the short-term stuff. And so if the rates in the short term get very low, well, that'll actually help the deficit. Now, what it won't do is it won't help the inflation picture, because low rates in an economy that's full employment, that's going to stoke inflation, right? So they're really, the Fed's kind of trapped. They know they've got an inflation problem. They know they haven't completely solved it, but they've also got a debt problem, and they know that without printing more money, the debt structure isn't going to hold together. So it's quite a predicament that they're in, and it'll be very interesting to see how they play it. I mean, it's like get your popcorn. I mean, I've got lots of scenarios in my mind, but I really don't know exactly what will happen. It depends on how all the actors involved behave.
So we talked about and just kind of teased it a second ago, some of the ETF stuff, but the like kind redemption. I'd love for you to kind of unpack this and what it means potentially for the average guy.
So let's talk about why you might care about that, and let's talk about how you own Bitcoin. There are two, as you know, but most of your listeners probably know, but maybe some don't. There are really two ways to own Bitcoin. You can kind of own it natively, cold storage. You own the keys, you control it. You have a ledger, a Trezor, a cold card, whatever, and you're sovereign, you're self-sovereign, I guess we call it. You can go anywhere in the world with your 12 or 24 words, and you could access your Bitcoin, access your wealth. Okay, that's the highest and best way to do it, in my opinion, because the government doesn't need to know you have it, although they could figure it out, based on where you bought it and the transfers you've done. And you could always say, hey, I don't have the keys anymore, I lost it. Tough darts, government, you can't grab it. The next layer, obviously, that opened up the floodgates of a lot of capital coming into Bitcoin were the ETFs, which were approved last January, February, and fastest growing ETF ever in terms of assets under management. Now, what happens there is BlackRock buys it, Fidelity buys it, they hold it for you. They're doing all the key management, so there's no way they're going to lose the keys because they've got layers and layers of protection. And you're just getting a ride on your stock that goes up and down with the price of Bitcoin, and that's okay. I mean, that's all right. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is, let's say the government gets really aggressive and decides, this Bitcoin thing's really killing us. We need to, I mean, this would be a blue team, not red team. This Bitcoin thing's really killing us, and we need to stop it. Let's do an executive order like Roosevelt's 6102 order, where we say, you know what, the government is going to seize we don't think Bitcoin's in the national best interest. We're going to seize it all. We'll give you cash for your coins. You have a coin that's worth 104. We'll send you $104,000 in cash, but you got to send us the coin. And it would really be easy for the government to do that, because they would just call Fidelity. They call every major ETF, and the ETFs would be forced to comply by the law. So, so more or less you would get what your cash value of Bitcoin was right at the time that you sold yours, but you wouldn't get any of the upside. And of course that's theft. I mean, in my view, but it's possible they'll do it. So having the right to, what was the wording they used to basically pull it out of the fund? There was a term you used for it.
Oh, the like kind redemption.
Like kind redemption, yeah. Right? Having a like kind redemption says that, okay, and I think, don't get me wrong, Brandon, I don't think they're going to let you pull out a tenth of a coin. I mean, I think they're probably going to, if they get it approved, they're going to say, okay, well, look, if you're a really big guy and you've got your Bitcoin in our fund and you decide, I'd rather take it out of my fund. But right now, if it goes up a lot and you're in their fund, when the minute you sell it, they're going to create a tax event and they're going to send it to the IRS. You're going to pay taxes on it. And, somebody might think, well, I really don't want to leave it in your fund. But I don't want to sell it and go buy it again, because then I have to pay taxes on the transaction. So I'd like a like kind, in order to eliminate the risk of the 6102 confiscation, and in order to address the issue of selling it to pay taxes to buy it again, because you wouldn't get as much because you'd have to pay the tax. Maybe we should allow you to do a like kind redemption, which is just to say, I've got X number of shares. It represents Y amount of Bitcoin. I'll give you those shares back. You give me the Bitcoin. Now, this has not been approved yet. I think BlackRock applied for it, but it's, they're trying to get it. So it's an idea, and I think it would be very positive if they did get it.
I want to talk about gold, because obviously that's your background and where you come from. And it's one of the reasons I love and respect you, and I think many do, because you are someone who has a ton of wisdom, experience, and many more years than really probably a lot of Bitcoin and crypto people out there, right? So you've seen all this, and you were able to humble yourself and then come all the way and transition to a Bitcoin world, which, not many people have been able to do yet. So in saying all that, gold's ripping, silver's ripping. I would love for you to unpack what's going on here for anyone who's been paying attention, for the ills of the system and why things are changing to a Bitcoin standard and what you just outlined.
If you want the answer to that question right there, and you like that spicy clip, check it out here. Come on, we'll see you in there. But if you want the full interview in its entirety, all the spicy clips put together, and you're not going to want to miss it, believe me, then check that out here. Go on, we'll see you in there. Do it.